Kim Vermaak is the author of several novels, including a fantasy series with a growing following around the world. But she's also taken her experience and skill to write books for authors and aspiring authors who think it's time to finally get that book out there. She's also a speaker, a mother, a wife, and an active community member. How does she do it all? Well, we'll be finding that out. But the important thing is that she has a book that just might be for you. If you're a speaker, an aspiring author, a leader, or a coach. Now, she has a book available for the speakers, the leaders, and the coaches who know they have a book in them, and that it's time to finally get it out there. Escaping the Well of Silence, the 30-day guide for speakers, leaders, and coaches who want to write a book, is exactly what they need to get started. Kim, we'd love to hear more. You're a wellspring of ideas. In the speaking world, among authors, we all know that you've got a million book ideas. So why did you choose to prioritize writing this book now?
I'm part of a greater speaker community, and I've just served a term of office in the Professional Speakers Association. And in that journey, I discovered there are so many coaches and trainers that have got wonderful ideas, and they always say, I want to write a book, but they just struggle to get started.
So I was going to ask you who this book is for, but that's a really good answer. If I'm the kind of person listening to this and I think maybe that's me, but I'm not sure, how will I know if the book is for me?
You know the book is for you if you've been sitting at your computer on more than one occasion and you're staring at a blank page and then you say, what now? Because the knowledge is in here, but sometimes you need a little bit of a catalyst to just bring you over the edge so that you can actually start writing. And that's what this book is about.
That's actually really helpful, because the word writer's block speaks of something that I think people don't really have, but they might also be looking at what they're writing and going, but this is not very good, and lose heart. So that really speaks to who really needs that book. I love it. But your book is unique. There are many books out there for people who want to get started. This one is really special. What makes it so unique?
The book is essentially a compilation of writing prompts, but I targeted them specifically at speakers. So it has got a series of little intros for stories that speak to the kind of community that we're in, and it helps them to just get started. You would use that prompt and then continue writing your own unique genius in that particular space.
That's really interesting, because speakers tell stories, coaches tell stories and live them with their clients. But sometimes when they go to the page, they feel that they need to be instructional and pass along only the facts. So this really brings that to life, because we all get captured by a story. And as a little bit of bonus background, you told me about one of your favorite books in the world and how it taught you about this. Can you tell us a little bit more about how that sparked a revelation for you?
So I've always read, but I love novels. I struggle with nonfiction books. I studied for 4 years, and sometimes there's certain nonfiction books that are just simply boring. So I struggle to get through them, and I've got a whole row of books that I just simply haven't finished. My favorite book was The 1 Minute Millionaire, because it is a business book and it's got all of these really good principles in it, but they wrote it in a story-like format. So it's a journey of one particular woman who really needs to achieve a goal, and she's got a deadline and she has to apply these business principles pretty quickly. I was riveted. I finished that entire book. I tore through it, and along the way, I learned these principles. And so it shows me that when you capture people's hearts, that is when they care about your story.
That's amazing, because it shows us that the story gets the people's reading, captures their attention, and once they finish the book, they actually can refer back to it. And books like that build up a following where we can say to somebody else who's read the book, oh, that principle, that story, remember that person. So it really is a powerful tool, but doing it well is an art. So that is one of the things that you show in Escaping the Well of Silence. But Escaping the Well of Silence is also a very special kind of book. Although there are stories involved, this is a book about rolling up your sleeves and getting your hands dirty. So it's really practical, it's hands-on. What is the best way that you recommend that people use this?
Well, the book is essentially in two parts. The first part is a 30-day series where you're going to be writing every single day using the writing prompts. The second part of the book is about wellness. And so people will sometimes say, what has a writing prompt got to do with wellness? Well, as an author, I have already committed all the sins that authors can do in terms of having too much coffee, slouching at your desk, not having a good support in terms of your neck. So there are certain elements in there that is going to help the authors to say, you've got this project, but how do we do it well? It's not just about the words. It's about how you take care of yourself during that process.
So that is really also about sustaining and really achieving success, because that is one of the things that I really want to tap your expertise on. And I think it's really important for people hearing this to know about that, because there's nothing as sad as reading a book, getting excited, giving it a go, and then hitting an obstacle, hitting a wall, and giving up, or never fully putting it into practice. You want your readers to succeed, and you actually have this book and other books for authors in place to help them do that. But you've got something more. Tell us about that, Kim.
So I run a coaching program. It's a 6-month coaching program for authors, because particularly that lack of accountability is quite a stumbling block. But over and above that, you have to have a mindset. You have to have a mindset shift. So there are things that people say to authors like, you'll never make any money from writing books. This will just be a business card. And that is actually a fallacy. Part of the community that I'm creating is to showcase other authors that have actually gotten it right, that can teach you those kinds of skills. So in the coaching program, we work through that so that people see this is not a sprint, it's a marathon. It's a place where you can make a big impact with your book, but you need to have those skills.
You make a really good point there, because there is a lot of encouragement for speakers, for experts of every kind, to get out there and write the book. But what also happens in the process is I've heard business coaches saying, nobody's ever really going to read your book. I've also seen them crank out a lot of books or get their clients to do the same, and the books are actually really not that good. And as somebody who loves books and who loves language, I read the books and I go, well, there are errors in here, there are horrible typos in here, there's a lack of structure, there are all kinds of weaknesses in the book, which of course I, as a non-author to date, can very easily criticize. I realize that it's not quite as easy as that, but it compromises the quality of what people put out. And you're really saying it's more than just a business card. And I think that's what makes you really worth listening to on this subject. And what's more, your books are doing really well, which is the best advertising there can be. So writing a book is no easy thing. You've spoken about the lack of support that people can have, the lack of accountability, and the discouragement in how many people can actually actively discourage us from that project, apart from the mere challenges of getting started. Now, you've had every excuse there is to not write a book. You have a full career, you are speaking, you are doing work of your own, you've run a business, you're a mother, you're a wife, you're an active community member. If you wanted an excuse, you had them all. And yet you've written multiple books with great success, and you continue to promote them with great success. So how did you do it? What's the secret?
I had a routine. So I often compare writing a book to having a baby. When you first have the baby, they cry, they're disruptive, you get no sleep, and you kind of feel like you're going to go insane. But the difference between a book and a baby is that when you have a baby, you can't back out. You have to find a rhythm. And as you find a rhythm and this is the time that bath time is going to be, this is the time that we are going to be nursing the baby or feeding the baby, when you get that rhythm right, it flows. Now, as authors, we don't have practice on getting into a writing routine. And so sometimes people struggle for a few days and they say, oh, it's not working for me. But you've got to approach it in the same way that you would with a baby. If you do not find a way to get into that rhythm, to develop the skills, it's just simply not going to work. So it's the first thing that I always tell my authors. And in fact, on our coaching program, we have an accountability sheet. So they have to submit to me on a Friday what it is that they achieved in that week. Sometimes they've done 0 words, and then the challenge is that you want to pull away from your coach because you're going to say, I'm failing at this. But that's when I say, send me your sheet in any case, because on the bottom of the sheet, we say what worked this week and what didn't work this week. And as you're doing that, you're learning and you're growing.
That is such a wonderful feedback loop. And just having somebody to listen who cares and being part of a community makes a tremendous difference to that. And some of those are luxuries you didn't have. So it's wonderful that you're sharing this with your writing community. Then it's no small thing to write a book. And there's a very good reason why so many people haven't done it. You've succeeded time and again, and you've been a midwife to these book babies of the people that you serve, to your clients who are enjoying success through the books that you've helped them publish and the books that you've helped through the gate. What is your advice for the person listening to this who thinks it's time to get started, but there are still so many excuses? I'm probably one of them, saying, well, there are just too many other things on my plate, or I don't know how the story is going to end yet. I don't know what the book is, or I don't even know what the idea is yet. What is your advice to the aspiring author who needs to get their book started?
The first thing that I do with my coaching clients is I chat to them about their vision for the book, because vision is the thing that's going to propel you. So it's not just writing a book, it is who am I going to serve with this book? Who needs to hear this book? Who can I help? And once you've created that vision, so not the kind of vision, oh, I want this to be a bestseller, because being a bestseller, you can be a bestseller now and in 15 minutes time, someone else is a bestseller. And that's something that I learned with working with Amazon. It is really about who you want to serve. Now, once you've created that, once you know what your vision is, then it is about knuckling down and getting it done. But we have these self-limiting beliefs, and so we think it's much harder than what it is. When people come into my program, I make them do a 15-minute speed typing test, and we evaluate how many words you can type in 15 minutes. And 15 minutes is a nice, easy chunk. Anyone can find 15 minutes. You can make a cup of tea and get yourself a sandwich in 15 minutes. And on average, the authors are writing about 350 words in 15 minutes. Now that's 700 words a day. If you are only writing a few days a week, you can actually churn out 2,800 words. And if you start multiplying that, by the end of 6 months, you can have over 67,000 words. That's 6 months. When you look at it that way, it becomes easier to digest. It is then no longer a 5, 10, 15-year project. It is a 6-month project. Now, you do have to get a good editor and a good cover designer, because that's why you have that you read the book, the person is an expert, but it's not a good quality read. So I always say to people, don't cheat yourself out of good cover design and good editing, but it really is a lot easier to write a book than we imagine.
That is incredibly encouraging. This is a question that many authors have as an obstacle. It's an obstacle they create for themselves. And they create this obstacle of, but should I publish it on Amazon, or should I self-publish? Should I find a publisher? And because of these questions remaining unanswered, they don't start. Is there anything you can share with people asking that question that can help them to just go and get started anyway?
So it doesn't matter what way you're going to publish the book, whether you're going to go traditional publisher or you're going to go self-publishing, you still need a product to pitch. So write the book. You can figure those things out along the way. Personally, I like the self-publishing route because I have control over the distribution of my book. I have control over the messaging. Very often when you're working with a traditional publisher, they take away some of their control. There might be a chapter that you feel is really important that they ask to have removed because it doesn't form as part of their marketing plan. So traditional publishers can give you an immense amount of credibility. They can take away a lot of the headaches that indie publishers have, but there is the control element. You cannot give your book away for free. You have to purchase it through them. And if they decide to stop promoting that book, then you've got a challenge. So I always encourage authors to look at the independent publishing point of view, because yes, there are costs involved going up. You are an entrepreneur. However, you have a lot more control on how you want to work with that book. And if you have a business plan in place, you can certainly be successful.
And so all of this leads us right back to why this book, Escaping the Well of Silence, can be such an asset to somebody who knows it's time to write that book. And I could easily stay talking to you for a long time, Kim, because you're such a font of wisdom, and your experience and your expertise in writing is just so fascinating to hear. But of course, there are many videos on that and a growing collection on your YouTube channel. So for anybody who is still thinking, well, I need to learn more, that's the place to find it. Because I think people watching right now have another question, and they are itching to find out, where do I get Escaping the Well of Silence?
So Escaping the Well of Silence is available on Amazon, and you can also purchase it directly through me. So if I am going to be speaking at one of your events, you can always ask me to bring extra copies for sale. And yeah, that's where you'll find it.
Very, very exciting. And there are links to the Amazon version and also where you can find Kim to order your own physical copy. What a great way to galvanize an event, having physical copies of this book. Now that we all have the digital copies, it can be really exciting to have a real book that you can hold in your hands. Kim, thank you so very much for sharing your wisdom. I think you've given us every reason why now is the time to get started on writing that book, and writing it with care and with quality. Thank you for making that possible for aspiring authors. I can't wait to see what is going to come out of this book and what it's going to mean for the speakers, the leaders, and the coaches who want to write a book.
Thank you. Thank you for having been part of my journey.
Thank you, Kim.